welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are joined again by Kweku for this video. It's nice to see you. How have you been?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. I can't complain. Life's been busy, but I'm enjoying it.
Good. I'm glad to see you again. I'm glad you're doing okay. Let's get straight into the video. Today we're doing the top 5 players, in our opinions, to not win the Premier League, in there. But the only rules is they had to play more than one season in the Premier League. Otherwise, that'd be a bit unfair. So let's start off with your list, Kweku, and the honourable mentions that we both have that didn't make our lists.
Okay, so in terms of my honourable mentions, there's a couple of players who played in the 90s. Matt Letizia, who played for Southampton for his whole Premier League career, was a one-club man. He was obviously very, very talented. Playing for a team like Southampton, probably no chance at actually winning the league, but he was great at what he did. He scored some incredible goals. And yeah, he's somebody that if it wasn't for the quality of the other players on my list, I would definitely had him in there just because he was a great player to watch. And then somebody I didn't see much of at all really is Paul Gascoigne. Played for a number of clubs, played for Newcastle, played for Spurs. People probably remember him more for his international goals, whether it be his performances at Italia 1990 or the Euros in '96. But yeah, Gazza is a player that when you hear ex-pros talk about him, played with a lot of life, a lot of vibrance. He brought a smile to a lot of people's faces. And he's a man who didn't win the Premier League either. So again, if there wasn't so many quality players on my list, Gazza would have definitely made the list as well.
Oh yeah. So unfortunately for me, I never got to see either of them sort of play in their prime, but I've seen a lot of clips of Matt Letizia and Paul Gascoigne. Some of the goals like Matt Letizia would score were insane. For a player of his sort of build as well, the stuff he was able to do was unreal at times. In my list, I've got Mesut Ozil, because it's someone I saw a lot more, not necessarily in his peak, but for them couple of years he was at Arsenal. Him and another teammate, which might be in my list, carried that team to get top 4 for quite a few seasons, and they did really well, the two of them. But they were just, I think if it didn't help how good the other teams were, such as the likes of Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, if they weren't as good as they were, I do think they could have potentially won something. So I think he was a bit unfortunate, but then it ended on a bit of a sour note for Ozil. And then my other honourable mention is somebody who actually is still playing, is Harry Kane. As I said, he might win one. I don't see him winning one at the moment because I don't see where he'd move to that would probably win him one in the league with how good Man City are. I think he's sort of missed that now that he didn't go. Was it last season or the season before when he tried to? I think it was the season before when he tried to get the move. I think that was his chance because now they've got Haaland. They just don't need him anymore at all. So I think he's sort of missed that opportunity to win one. And with him being, I think, 70 odd goals off of Shearer's record, which is something for him he can do in maybe 4 seasons if he carries on the sort of form he's on. I think that's his main target now, is to beat Shearer's record, to be honest.
Yeah. They're two solid honourable mentions. I didn't really have Ozil in it just because I think the other players that I mentioned maybe brought a little bit more, performed a little bit higher. But yeah, they're two solid honourable mentions.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was just, as I was having a look through of who's never won it, there was some that were like I'd never saw live, so I wanted to sort of stick to it as players I've seen a lot more, so I can actually comment. So, but I'd 100% agree with your choices. To be fair, as well, they were very good players back in the day. So let's get straight into it. Your 5 players.
So my 5 players, the first 2 are Chelsea players. So like the era that I kind of became a Chelsea fan was like 97, 98. And 2 of those premium players at that time were Marcel Desailly, who's a centre-back, French centre-back, won the World Cup with France, won Champions League with AC Milan, came to Chelsea at the latter stage of his career, but had a huge impact, became our captain. John Terry learned off of him. He was a stalwart for Chelsea, won a few trophies as well. So yeah, Marcel Desailly is a player that I idolised growing up. He's obviously plays for the French national team, but he's Ghanaian descent, same as myself. So I had a real affinity for him, and he was one of the first Chelsea captains I do remember. Never won the Premier League with Chelsea. Probably he came just before the money, or he left just before the money came in. So yeah, he's somebody that I idolised growing up, and he definitely is in my top 5 list. And then somebody else from that era, Gianfranco Zola. He's my favourite player of all time. Again, he left just before the money came in, despite the fact that Roman Abramovich tried to keep him when he took over the club. But yeah, he's somebody who had incredible talent, incredible ability with the ball, from set pieces, from open play. Scored some important goals, won some trophies for Chelsea, domestic trophies and European trophies, but never won the Premier League. Yeah, he's just my favourite player of all time and the reason why I support Chelsea. So he's got to go in my top 5 list. Next player on the list is Gareth Bale. Obviously, doesn't really need to be explained in terms of how good Gareth Bale was. He won 2 PFA Player of the Years. Never won the trophy with Spurs. Obviously, you know about Spurs' struggle with winning trophies, but he's top player. What he went on to do at Real Madrid is incredible. But just for those years that he was at his peak in the Premier League, he was unbelievable and definitely deserves to be in any top 5 list of players who've never won the Premier League. Next on the list is a player that you had in your honourable mentions, Harry Kane, another Spurs legend. He's still going. I can't see him winning the Premier League at Spurs, especially with the state of English football, Man City being so dominant. But Harry Kane's a player that will go on to break the all-time goal scoring record for England. I think he'll go on to break the all-time goal scoring record in the Premier League as well. And if it wasn't for Erling Haaland this season, everybody was talking about the form of Harry Kane because he scored a lot of goals. I think he'll continue to score a lot of goals because that's just what he does. And I think he's a little bit underappreciated in terms of how good he is. He's one of the greatest Premier League strikers of all time. But hasn't won the Premier League title, hasn't won the trophy. And so he definitely deserves to be on the list, in my opinion. And then finally, probably the man that tops everybody's list is Steven Gerrard. Obviously, incredible footballer for club and country. Won some trophies for Liverpool in terms of he spearheaded that comeback in Istanbul. It's called the Gerrard Final in 2006 when he scored those 2 goals against West Ham. An absolute legend of the Premier League. Obviously, probably his best chance of winning it was the 13-14 season, where he unfortunately slipped against Chelsea, which was kind of the catalyst for Liverpool's collapse that season. But an incredible player that in any other era, if he played for any other team in the Premier League at that time, he would have had a host of trophies, had the chance to go to Chelsea, but was loyal to the club that he grew up supporting. So Steven Gerrard, for me, tops that list as probably the greatest player to never win the Premier League.
Yeah, 100%. I've got some of them on my list as well. So for my list, I've got a couple of Liverpool players as well, of course. So I start off with Fernando Torres that I have because for years when he was playing for Liverpool and what he was doing for Spain as well, obviously was it the World Cup, the Euros, and he might have been part of the other Euros team potentially, I think, off the top of my head. But I know he was a very important player I think he scored against Germany in either the semis or the final in one of the competitions. But for those couple of seasons when Torres was at his best, he was regarded as like one of the best strikers, if not the best striker in the world at them times. Obviously, until he went to Chelsea, which is he completely just collapsed and everything just wasn't the same player anymore. Which was sad to see because obviously for years he was the sort of player. Him and Gerrard were the 2 players I grew up on at Liverpool. They were like the 2 main players for years. I'd get them on the back of every shirt every season. It'd always be those 2. And they had such a good partnership together as well. They played so well as a duo, constantly assisting each other for goals and stuff like that. As I said, I think he deserved the Premier League with the way he was at times in the league, like being so dominant. And he was a striker that was able to do everything, in my opinion. He was able to right foot, left foot, header. Like he didn't really have many sort of weaknesses, in my opinion, when he was at his best. And then I've also got Alexis Sanchez from Arsenal, because as I said, sort of previous with Ozil, I think for years Sanchez was regarded as probably up there with Eden Hazard as one of the best wingers in the league. And if you're doing what he did in the Premier League, you're regarded as one of the best players in the world. And for seasons, I remember Arsenal was a tough place to go away, and it was such a difficult game because of players like Alexis Sanchez. I remember they beat Liverpool one year like 4-0, and he got a couple of goals. He dominated teams on his own single hand. I think he got hat-trick against West Ham as well at one point. He was just such a dominant player on that left-hand side for Arsenal for years. And I think he deserved one as well with the stats he was getting in, I wouldn't say an average Arsenal team, but it wasn't as probably good as it is now. Like I think if you put him in that Sanchez in the team now, I think they would probably win the Premier League. And I've also got Gareth Bale as well, as you said. Don't need to say too much. 2 PFA Player of the Years, and the fact he did so much of it from fullback as well. He was so good at fullback going forward that they moved him up to right wing and left wing. Shows how good he was and how much he could dominate a game from fullback. You don't really see, like, yes, Trent can dominate a game from fullback, but it's a completely different way of dominating the game from what Gareth Bale used to do. And as you said, went on to Real Madrid to win, was it 5 Champions League, I believe he won? And being obviously very important in various finals and scoring a lot of goals and winning a lot of league titles and all the trophies over there. As you say, just not Spurs just being unfortunate, not being there. He probably, again, wasn't in there with their best team. Obviously, he came back a few seasons ago and he showed he still had the talent, maybe not quite to the level he was because he had a lot of injuries and stuff like that, but still a quality player. I've also got Steven Gerrard, of course. I think, as you said, everyone would have him in the list. He's got the most PFA Player of the Year appearances with 8, I believe, which is obviously voted by fellow players. Again, just probably my favourite player of all time. Just every week watching him and stuff like that, like made you sort of like love football and like, love Liverpool even more because it was always him. It was always Gerrard who did everything. As you said, Istanbul, the FA Cup final, so many big games. He'd single-handedly carry us. Yes, there was times where we had good players around, and like, we had Alonso, Mascherano, Torres, but he deserved to be like. If he was in like a Real Madrid team, he wouldn't look out of place in my opinion at that time. And there was a reason that Mourinho wanted him at Madrid and at Chelsea. And when he was close to joining Chelsea, I think it was obviously there was a lot of issues like people burning his shirt, and everyone felt very like betrayed and stuff. But eventually, he did stick to his guns and he stayed in the end. But I think more than anyone, I think he deserved one just because of obviously how unfortunate it happened with the slip and stuff, which may not have been the issue or reason why we didn't win the league. Because obviously a week later we dropped a 3-0 lead to Palace. So I think it was just one of them things that was very unfortunate for him. But I feel like if it was going to happen to anyone, it would be someone like him, just because. And the fact it's still sort of he still holds on to it now is obviously very difficult for him. And then finally, as a player for that season, another Liverpool player is Luis Suarez. I think for that season, 13-14, he got 31 goals and 12 assists in 33 games. I think that's probably the best Premier League season you'll ever see. Yes, he doesn't have the record of goals, but if he'd have played the extra 7 odd games, I think he could have easily walked away with 35, 40, maybe even 40 goals, just because that season he was doing everything. The goals he was getting, the assists he was getting, he single-handedly carried us to that. Without him in that season, Liverpool would have been nowhere near that Premier League title. Obviously, we fell short in the end, but that season for him was just outstanding. I don't think we'll see another dominant season as an overall like all-round game like we saw of him. Obviously, Haaland's probably going to break the goal record this season just because he's an absolute machine, but I don't think he'll get the overall numbers in the goals and assists that Suarez got. And obviously, he did all that without penalties as well, because we'd have had players like Gerrard taking our penalties. Obviously, the reason he missed the games was a rightful reason, and all that stuff. But I think if he'd have played a couple of extra games, then you could be looking at arguably the best Premier League season ever, if it's not already. So they'd be my 5 players.
Nice. Yeah, I think like I said, I've got a couple of names that translate on that list who we both got on each other's list. But yeah, like I say, that Suarez season was incredible. I remember it very well. Yeah, and it was arguably up there with the greatest Premier League seasons of all time. They definitely played that. If you had put him in this Liverpool team or one of Klopp's Liverpool teams, and he would have scored an incredible amount of goals because he was just that good, and he went on to be one of the greatest strikers of all time. So yeah, it's I think we both got solid lists. Obviously, I'm showing my age a little bit with some players with Marcel Desailly and Gianfranco Zola.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think both lists are solid, and I don't think anybody could really begrudge the names that we've got in those lists.
No, obviously, we've both got our biases. You've got your Chelsea players, I've got my Liverpool players, so we're always going to have that. But yeah, it's been a pleasure as it always is to speak with you and have you on the channel. Hope to get you on again soon. I hopefully won't wait this long again to do another video, as it's been nearly a month, so I do apologise for that. But thank you everyone for watching. Obviously, I'll leave all the links in the description to Kweku's podcast. Do give it a listen. It's a great podcast. All the socials will be down there as well. So please like and subscribe and all that stuff. And yeah, thank you for watching, everyone. And I'll see you again soon.